Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today is a daytime video because I had some time before I go to work today and I figured this would be a good time to do my 2024 tier list. So if you are new here, it's your first time seeing me, welcome. My name is Shay. I'd make videos about horror movies, horror TV shows, horror games, coming soon, and theme parks because I live in Central Florida and I feel like it would be a crime not to. And if you're not new here, if you've been here for a while, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again. A few months ago, sometime last year, I did a video where I did a tier list of 2010s movies, horror movies that I've seen that I loved or hated. I'll leave the link to that in the description. That got some pretty good feedback, so I decided when I was doing my 2024 recap for horror movies that I was going to do this again. Also, sorry if I sound a little congested. I wake up every morning with the worst allergies in the world, and also it's cold for Florida here. I'm loving it, but it seems like everybody else in Florida is having an absolute meltdown because it's cold right now. Guys, in 3 weeks it's gonna be 90 degrees again, so let's enjoy this while we have it. Hopefully not, knock on wood. But yeah, no, if I sound a little congested, it's just because my allergies have been really bad the last couple of days, and I live on Clairton, so yeah. Anyways, I wanted to do a tier list because I feel like it'd be the best way. Now, some of these movies that are on this list I have done reviews for, some of them I haven't done reviews for. I'm going to go as best as I can from memory in order of the movies I've watched first to the movies I watched most recently. Now, I have to be transparent. There's a lot of stuff that came out in 2024 that I did not see. There are a lot of horror movies that I completely missed or weren't accessible to me, or horror movies that just had no interest in seeing. I am not a completionist when it comes to horror movies. If you're looking for somebody who watched every single horror movie released in 2024, that is not me. I'm going by the ones I watched. Most of them are the ones that were the most popular, the most talked about, the most anticipated, which I tried to stay on top of because those are usually the ones that everybody's going to be talking about at the time, and I want to make sure I have my own opinion. So there's movies that are missing. I know In a Violent Nature, I kept meaning to watch it, but I kept forgetting it existed. I don't have on that list. I don't have The Strangers Chapter 1 because for some reason that's still not on streaming as far as I know. I think it just recently became available for rent. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Keeping this in the vault so nobody can see how bad it is? I didn't see it, so I don't know if it's bad or not, but judging by the reviews, I've heard it's probably one of the worst horror movies released in recent years. So there's that to look forward to. Now, some of the movies I will revisit in 2025, and I'll do separate reviews on, and they're not going to be included in this list. Who cares at this point? But this list is mostly the ones I watched. Like I said, some of them I've done reviews for, so I'm not going to go too much into detail on how I feel about them. Others I have not done reviews for, so you guys will be experiencing that for the first time. So without further ado, let's get into this tier list and the mini reviews because I have I just have stuff I want to talk about with you guys. So let's do it. Let's go for it. All right, so let's talk about these movies. Now, I made this tier list on tiermaker.com. I'll probably include it in the description if you guys want to make your own tier list of these movies. I don't know if you can add pictures on here, but if you are able to, add the movies you've seen and where you would put them. So we're gonna start off, and we're gonna come in hot because I'm gonna already start off this video being controversial. So the first movie I watched in 2024, first horror movie I watched in 2024, that was a 2024 horror movie, was Late Night with the Devil, and that is immediately going in the F tier. Let me explain why I consider this an F tier movie for me. So for me, this movie was so hyped up and so excited. I was so excited to see this. The first trailer I saw of this movie blew me out the water. I was like, this is going to be scary. This is going to be terrifying. I love found footage media. I love lost horror media. Obviously, I've never really talked about it because it's kind of hard to talk about analog horror now. There's so many great analog horror creators, but some of them have not come out, but have been discovered to be incredibly problematic people. And I don't feel comfortable covering certain series. I had a whole thing planned for many different series, and then it was just like dominoes falling last year with creators getting exposed. So a lot of those series got canceled because I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable with platforming them and hyping them up. Even if the series is good, I don't feel comfortable platforming them and hyping them up if they're behind the scenes being awful people to, you know, other people. So unfortunately, a lot of those got thrown into the trash, and I haven't really gotten to talk about my love of analog horror. Maybe someday I'll do a video of it like as a genre, as a whole, but as of right now, that's shelved. However, this movie falls under the category of kind of like an analog horror. It's, if you don't know what Late Night with the Devil is about, it's about a lost Halloween episode of a popular talk show from like way back in the day. I think it's supposed to be in like the 70s from what I remember. And this talk show took a turn for the worse when the host of the talk show, in a last-ditch effort to keep his ratings up, invited a woman and a child onto the show, who the child claims she was possessed by a demon, and the woman is her sort of like her handler. And on the surface, from the trailer, I'm sure I'm going to insert some clips here, a little bit of the clips here and there, it looks like a really, really like solid scary movie. Most of this movie is just talking. There are two fantastic moments in this movie that if there was more of it, this movie would maybe have been bumped up to D or maybe even C tier. But 99% of this movie is just them sitting there hemming and hawing about whether demons actually exist, while there's a demonic child sitting right next to them like this. Like, she's losing her mind, and you're like, oh, demons don't really exist, but do they exist? But like, it was so boring. And then the ending was dumb. Like, I have read so many analysis of the end, like different analyses of the ending. It was dumb. It doesn't matter. It wasn't clear enough what was going on. And I feel like for me, I'm usually the kind of person that I don't need everything to be spelled out for me directly. Sometimes I can ruminate on things after I step back, but this movie pissed me off because not only did I sit through nearly an hour of just talking with like one really good demonic possession scene and one really good hypnosis scene, but then I got the most ridiculously ambiguous ending where it was like there was no payoff. There was nothing that made you feel like, okay, all of that was worth it. It was just like, all right, the demon escaped, and now there's all this weird trippy stuff happening, and we don't know what's real and what's not, and we don't know if Jack is involved, who's the host of the show, if he's involved, or if he's always known that demons are real, if he's part of the secret society. Like, all of that stuff is left ambiguous, and it's like, okay. You know, and I know it's going to be a really hard thing for some people to swallow because a lot of people really love this movie, and I feel like this is another situation for me, and this isn't one I will rewatch because I can't sit through the vomiting scene again. I just can't do it. It was too much for me, but it kind of reminds me of when Barbarian came out, how everyone was hyping up Barbarian, and I bring it up, I feel like, in every video. The last few videos I've brought it up a lot. I will make a video about my beef with Barbarian soon, I promise you, because I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably like, why do you hate Barbarian so much? Just to kind of touch on it, the same reason I hate Late Night with the Devil. People hyped it up like it was the pinnacle of horror. People hyped Late Night with the Devil up like it was the pinnacle of horror. It's boring. It's a boring movie. And I'm not one that needs constant action. I'm not one that needs, like, I mean, when you get into the later movies that are on this list that I love, they're you know, very dialogue heavy movies, or there's not a lot of action within the movies themselves. However, it was the way it was done, and it was done in a way that was well. I understand they were putting it in this lost media talk show format, but for me, I just kept waiting for something to happen, because the way people were talking about it being the scariest movie, maybe I needed to see it in theaters. I don't know. I waited till it was on Shudder to watch it because I couldn't make it to the theater. Maybe I needed to see it in theaters, but for some reason, like, even watching it like at home, I was just bored. So yeah, Late Night with the Devil is probably one of the worst horror movies I've seen this year that I think doesn't deserve the hype that it got. If you loved it, great. I'm happy for you. I would love to hear why, and maybe if I ever am brave enough to sit through this movie again, maybe just fast forward past the entire beginning with the vomiting scene, because that really was like pointless. That whole scene with the that's the other thing. That whole scene with the clairvoyant guy was pointless. It went nowhere. It was just this gross, disgusting vomiting scene that should have just been cut from the movie, in my opinion. And I know I had an argument with somebody earlier this year where they were like, oh, but I think it was because he was being affected by the demon, or he touched something too evil and it killed him from the inside. I'm like, yeah, but there was no follow-up on that. There was no follow-up. The only thing that we got was later on in the movie, somebody comes to tell Jack that the guy died. He died vomiting his guts out. Like, that's the only thing we got. there wasn't any payoff. It wasn't like he said something like really profound aside from, you know, talking about the guy's dead wife. It wasn't like he said something really profound, or like even before he died or before he started getting sick, he like warned Jack, like, you know, you need to send the girl home, and then started vomiting. Like, that would have been like, oh, okay, now I understand this character. There was no purpose for that scene or that character. He just was there to make you uncomfortable, and I hated it. I was like, see, if you're gonna have vomiting scenes in the movie, they gotta make sense. This doesn't make sense. This is just to make you uncomfortable and just to disgust you. I hate that. Don't do that. That's another reason I can't stand this movie. So, unfortunately, Late Night with the Devil is F tier for me this year. Back to my list. I'm trying to go in order of what I've watched. First Omen, A tier. Hands down, no holds barred, A tier movie. Let me explain to you guys why this movie is probably one of my favorite movies of 2024, because I feel like this is one of those movies that has a lot of mixed reception. This movie, okay, right off the top, I did do a review about this, so if you want to watch that, it's on my channel. I'll leave a link to the movies that I've done reviews for in the description. But The First Omen basically was a prequel to the movie The Omen. If you don't know what The Omen is, it's a movie about a political family that adopts a little boy, and it turns out that the little boy is the spawn of Satan. And this movie sort of shows you where Damien came from. I've never been a big fan of The Omen. I did not have high hopes for this movie. And then considering that this movie came out after another movie on this list, which we'll get into later, and a lot of people didn't like this one because it was a lot like that previous movie. If you know, you know. I personally was like, I had no hope for this movie. I sat down, I watched this movie on Hulu, and I fell in love. It is beautifully directed. It is wonderfully acted. If you've seen my review on this, then you know how I feel about this movie. The First Omen, the only reason I can't put it in S tier is because there's a couple of movies that surpassed this for me from last year, but this movie was like my favorite movie for almost the entire year till another movie on this list came along. It was so good. It was so beautiful. It was so creepy, and it actually made me appreciate The Omen, because as somebody who didn't like the Omen series, I just never really found it all that scary or that interesting. This movie really like pushed me into like the limelight of really liking The Omen, or being interested in seeing more of The Omen. And I would have loved to see this go someplace. Like, I hate remakes for the most part. Like, okay, I don't hate remakes, but I would love to see the Omen franchise rebooted with this storyline included in it. Kind of like how they've redone certain other things, like, but with this story included into it, because it was amazing. I love The First Omen. It's A tier for me this year. All right, so the next movie on this list is a movie called Stop Motion. I didn't do a review for this one. I'm gonna put this one in D tier. This was one that a lot of people were like, oh, it's so scary, it's so like gory, it's so graphic. It was really good, but it reminded me a lot of Saint Maud, but with claymation. I kind of figured out where this story was going pretty much like 20 minutes into the movie. I was like, okay, I know how it's gonna end, to an extent. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad movie. I put it in D tier because for me it was just a little bit too predictable. There are some great moments in this movie, and it is pretty gross, I guess you could say. It's very uncomfortable. The claymation sequences are uncomfortable. The relationship between the main character and the little girl that is like kind of helping her direct her stop motion movie is really like creepy and unsettling. I thought it was an interesting movie. It just wasn't one of my favorites of this year, so it definitely is D tier for me. If it's something that you're interested in watching, it is on Shudder, I believe, still. I hadn't really revamped my YouTube channel yet at that point, so I was watching this movie just on a whim because I kept seeing recommendations that it was really scary or really good, and it was okay. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't the worst movie I saw, but it definitely wasn't close to the best. After this, we have Exhuma. Exhuma. Okay, so Exhuma is probably the only Korean horror movie I watched this year. I love Korean horror. I'm putting it in B tier. The reason I'm putting it in B tier is because it's just a little bit too long for me. So I didn't do a review of this one either. I should have done a review of this one, let's be honest. But this movie is very long and very kind of convoluted at times. It is a Korean horror movie, so if you don't like reading subtitles, it's probably not going to be for you. I don't mind. Like I said, I love Korean horror movies. I've seen some fantastic ones. I always say Train to Busan is the best zombie movie ever made. Fight me. I don't care. There hasn't been anything that's topped it for me. And there's some other really solid Korean horror movies. This one is really good. It's really done. It's really, really well done. It's really well acted. It has its creepy moments. It's to just give you a little bit of the synopsis of this movie, because I don't think it's as commercial as some of the other ones on this list. I just watched it because I got an advertisement for it, and I was like, ooh, Korean horror. I was also watching the show Sweet Home at like right before I got the ad for it, and I was like, oh, more Korean horror. Sweet Home is also a fantastic show, and if you have not watched Sweet Home, listen, I know everybody's about Squid Game, but like there are other Korean shows that are really good, like Sweet Home. Watch that show. It's done. Like they finished the story. They finally got through the whole story. It's done. It's 3 seasons. You can get through it in like a couple of days. Watch Sweet Home. Squid Game isn't the only Korean show out there, okay guys? All right. Anyways. But yeah, no, I was like, I've always liked Korean horror, so I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So this movie is kind of about, well, not kind of, this movie is about a family that is under a curse from something in their bloodline, and it mainly follows I guess you could say, the exorcists that come to get rid of the curse. So it's an older guy, a young guy, and a girl. It's 2 older guys, a young guy, and a girl. I forgot about the other older guy. And they come to do these exorcisms. And the only reason I put it in B tier and not A tier is because it really does feel like it is maybe 30 minutes too long, or that it could have been split up. I've actually seen some people say that it probably would have made a better TV show, because there's so much information that they pack into one movie. It's divided into like 4 sections, if I don't believe. Like, you could have easily done a limited series where each section was its own part. And that would have been fine. I guess it would have been the same thing as watching the movie in whole, but it definitely felt like it went on for way too long. At certain parts, there were certain things that could have been taken out of it. But it is interesting. It does go into the history of Japanese imperialism in South Korea, or in Korea in general, which is very interesting. I don't know much about that storyline, but I do, not storyline, but I don't know much about that history, I should say. But, I know it's bad. So there's a touch on it. There's definitely a lot of imposing forces. There's some really scary imagery, some gore, couple of gnarly vomiting scenes, but I could withstand them because they were part of the story. And there's also the reason why I also brought up Sweet Home is that the guy who's the younger guy in this, that's one of the exorcists, he's one of the main characters in Sweet Home. So that's why I brought it up, because I was like, oh, I know that guy, and I was like, he's in Sweet Home. So yeah, definitely I would recommend Exuma if you like foreign horror films and you can handle listening to subtitles. I would recommend Exuma, definitely. So yeah, that one's in B tier for me. So after this, we have A Quiet Place Day One, which is the prequel to the Quiet Place franchise, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in B tier as well. I think I mentioned this when I did my review on A Quiet Place, that I'm not the biggest fan of the Quiet Place franchise. I do enjoy aspects of it, but it's not like something that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like my favorite thing in the entire world. I mainly wanted to see this because of the main cast. I'm a huge fan of Lupita Nyong'o. I said that in my video. I definitely wanted to see it just for that reason. And after seeing that movie, I definitely say it's better than A Quiet Place 2. It's in the middle between A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2. Like, it's in the middle. But I left the review I'll leave the review in the description if you guys want to see what I said about this movie months ago. It's definitely a B tier movie for me. It wasn't like groundbreaking. It didn't reinvent the wheel. It also didn't capture the same spirit of the original, where I felt like afraid to even breathe at times, because it was so quiet. There's a lot more noise in this movie than in the original, but I think that the cast was well rounded. It was cool to see what it was like when the invasion started, for especially in a big city. The story was captivating enough. It was fun. I had a good time. And I've watched it several times since it's been out. I've shown it to a few people, and I think it's a good horror movie to watch with people who aren't really like big on horror movies. I think it's like easy to stomach. So yeah, A Quiet Place Day 1 is a B tier movie, definitely. All right, next we have Longlegs. Okay, where do I want to put this one? Trying to think, trying to use my brain here. You know, if I'm honest, Longlegs is also a B tier movie for me. If I'm honest, if I'm real. I know Longlegs is another one like Late Night with the Devil where it's highly revered, highly regarded. I do think that there are people who are more willing to admit that they didn't like Longlegs as much as the next person did. I think for me, the reason I have to knock it down to B tier is because it's not what I expected at all. It was not what I expected. It was very much a police procedural, and the scare factor wasn't really there for me. I think the most intense scene of the entire movie was the interrogation scene. Again, I did a review on this. I'll leave that in the description. I'm gonna have so many videos in this description. Maybe I'll just make a playlist and I'll just leave the playlist in the description and you guys can go through those if you missed any of my prior reviews. Yeah, it just wasn't like when I first saw like the trailers and the way they were marketing this movie, it was genius. And I do think that Oz Perkins is a fantastic director. I am so excited for his movie coming out, The Monkey, later on, which is based off of a Stephen King story. I think he's gonna knock it out the park. He's a great director, and I think the movie itself was good. It just I had a different vision of what it was going to be, and it didn't live up to that vision, which is my own fault. And I definitely think that it was a victim of being incredibly overhyped by the horror community. A lot of people saw it when it came out and they were just going nuts about it and talking about how it was such a great movie, and I think it definitely suffered from being overhyped. But it was a very good, well done, well written, well executed movie. And the other reason I think I knocked it down to B tier is because I really don't see the hype with Maika Monroe, and I'm gonna kind of stand on business with that, where I don't really think she's all that great of an actress, and I don't think she can carry a horror movie as the lead. I feel like every single horror movie I've seen with her in it, where she's the lead, she kind of gets eaten by the other characters around her because she's so bland, except for Watcher, because she really was the only character in that movie, which is probably why I didn't like Watcher. Probably why I wasn't a fan of it, because it was boring to watch, because she's not interesting enough. Her acting's just a little bit too bland for me, and I think for a movie like this, we needed somebody that had a little bit more personality. That being said, the movie itself was great. Nicolas Cage was fantastic. That's why he became a meme with that "Let Me In Now" song. Everybody else did a great job. So the movie gets love from me. I definitely still want to purchase it and rewatch it a couple times to kind of, see how I feel about it upon rewatch. So yeah, that one goes into B tier for me. All right, we have the girl herself, Abigail. Abigail goes into A tier for me. A for Abigail. Up until I saw the two movies that became my favorites, and especially one of the movies, Abigail dethroned The First Omen. I kept hoping it would be I was so hoping it was going to be Longlegs, and I was so mad when I left the theater, and I was like, that didn't dethrone The First Omen for me. I think The First Omen was better than Longlegs. And then I saw Abigail. I really didn't think I was going to like Abigail that much. It's a horror comedy. It's not really, scary per se, but my goodness, did I have such a good time watching this movie. I laughed, I jumped, and I'm still sad that it did not get the love that it deserved, that we probably will never get an Abigail haunted house. We probably will not have the presence that Megan has at Halloween Horror Nights for Abigail, and I think Abigail's perfect for a haunted house. I really think that it's a missed opportunity. It's perfect. It's it takes place in a house. There's so many things you can do, so many jump scares you can have. You could have that whole scene of her in the hallway, getting ready to do some ballet towards you, and I just think it would be so great to see that come to fruition. But who knows? Megan's kind of the it girl of Blumhouse, so I don't think that Abigail's going to dethrone her. But this movie was also the movie that reinvigorated my love of vampires. Right after that, I went back and revisited The Lost Boys because I hadn't watched it in years. Well, actually, I hadn't watched it in a year. I did watch it when I was showing my best friend the movie, so she could see what I was talking about when I started going, Michael. But yeah, no, I ended up getting back into my vampire bullshit after this. I did, again, do a review about this one. I love this movie. It's an A tier for me. I don't care what anybody says. It was a fun movie. We had a good time watching it. Me and my best friend were just rolling. We were like, this movie's awesome. Like, we were literally vocalizing that in the middle of watching the movie, going, this movie's awesome. What are people talking about? It's so good. So yeah, no, Abigail, A tier for me. Now, I included this one, but it's not technically a horror movie, but I included this one for a reason, only because I think it's a staple in horror culture, despite it not being a horror movie. But not this movie, but this franchise. But Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I'm going to put it in the C tier. It was mid, okay? It was mid. I didn't do a review on this one, surprise, surprise, so I'll do a little review. So the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie takes place right after the events of Afterlife. If you haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, that movie's fantastic. I definitely highly recommend it. If you're a big Ghostbusters fan like myself, that definitely was like, it made you nostalgic for, you know, simpler times in life. So this movie definitely, it takes place right after the events of the first one for the most part. And most of it is more of the familial struggle. Phoebe, who is our youngest Ghostbuster, is being told by Peck, I think he's the governor now, Governor Peck. So if you remember from the original movie, the guy from the Environmental Protection Agency, the one that everybody says isn't a villain, but he absolutely is a villain because he opened the chamber without even knowing what was in there. I don't care what anybody says. Hold on. I gotta sit on my soapbox for a second. Why do people say that Peck is not a villain? I get where people are coming from when they say that the Ghostbusters were running around unregulated and that they could have caused harm to people. But Peck opened the ghost containment, like containment center. He opened it, not knowing what was in there. He opened it. He's 100% a villain. Like, his incompetence, his arrogance, thinking, oh, I took the Ghostbusters down, now let me just open this. And if you're part of the EPA, why would you open that without running tests? Why would you not, like, at least try to get some sort of reading on it first? It's clearly a containment unit for something. Even if it was, like, a containment unit for, like, gaseous, you know, gases or something like that. Like, he could have poisoned all of New York City. He let out ghosts. He is absolutely a villain. People, like, I always see, like, listicles online where people are like, tell me about a character who is framed as a villain but isn't actually a villain, and people always have him on there, and I'm like, no, he's a villain. He's a villain. I know people like to say that people think he's a villain just because he's mean to Bill Murray. I don't give a crap about him being mean to Bill Murray in the movie. I give a crap about the fact that this man works for a government agency and he opened something without testing it and almost killed half of New York City. So yeah, he's a jerk, he's an idiot, and he still sucks in this movie. But now he's a governor, I guess, which I feel like is a downgrade if you worked for the Environmental Protection Agency and then you are suddenly the governor. I feel like that's a downgrade. Maybe not. I might be wrong about that. But of course, the Ghostbusters are back with all their destruction, the new Ghostbusters. And Phoebe, who's Spengler's granddaughter, he realizes she's a child, so she really shouldn't be out there busting ghosts. So he tells them she can't be a Ghostbuster. And the whole movie is sort of about that, but then there's this like imposing figure named Garaka that is like a ice god, and he's even more powerful than Gozer is. Yeah, he's scary. His design is scary, and in the haunted house he was definitely creepy. However, there's not enough of him in this movie. He really only shows up at the end of the movie. And I feel for a movie that's called Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I thought that we were going to have to deal with him for a lot longer than we did. The majority of the movie is the conflict between Phoebe and her family and wanting to be a Ghostbuster, wanting to do what's right, but also dealing with the reality that she is a child and she, you know, is doing something dangerous. It had a lot of heart. It was a fun movie. The haunted house was fantastic for this movie. I loved it. I really didn't think it was going to be one of my favorites of Halloween Horror Nights last year. I really thought I was going to hate it, but it's a mid movie for me. It's a mid tier. It's a C tier movie. I didn't do a review on it because I didn't feel like I had enough to say about it, and I still don't. It's a good movie. If you get a chance to watch it, it's fun to watch with the kids. It's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen from Ghostbusters. So yeah, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a C tier movie. All right, Tarot, that goes right in the F tier for me. So many people are giving this movie way too much grace, and way too much way too much. Listen, I understand that there has to be movies made for all horror movies made for all sorts of demographics. This is definitely like a teen, like, get together with your friends and gather around the TV with your blankets and your snacks and scream at the screen movie. For me, as a 33-year-old woman, not interested in movies like this. Don't find them entertaining. Find them to be almost insulting to the horror genre. It was super predictable. It was boring. The kills weren't even good. For the most part, it was like watching like an MTV like TV show, like a you know, I don't even know. Like, I don't want to say Teen Wolf, because Teen Wolf is actually pretty good, but it was kind of giving like CW vibes. Like, this horror movie was like a CW horror movie. Like, if CW was tasked to make a horror movie, they would have made tarot. I also have problems with the demonization of tarot, because as somebody who is a spiritual person, I do believe that there is enough of that in society. And like, I had this argument with somebody, and I know I mentioned it in my review, because I did make a review on this one too. I had this argument with somebody on Facebook where someone was saying, oh, but you know, symbols for Christianity and Catholicism are also used in horror movies. I'm like, yeah, but they're never used as the bad guy. They're always used as the good guy. like a cross is used to banish the demon. Holy water is used to banish the demon. The Bible's used to banish the demon. It's never really used. Like, yes, you have the nun, but even the movie The Nun is still using those things for good. You just have a creepy looking nun as one of the demons. Like, so again, you're not talking about, they're not demonizing Christianity or Catholicism when they make a horror movie, except for Immaculate, but we'll talk about that later, and The First Omen, kind of, but we'll talk about that later. You're not demonizing Christianity and Catholicism. They're demonizing demons, who then they're using Christianity or Catholicism to fight those demons. Whereas in tarot, the tarot is the evil. The cards are the evil. And I mean, I do appreciate them for doing their research and getting things like right about how to do it, and also the proper thing about not using other people's cards without their permission, which they completely disregard and do anyways, because, you know, teen horror movie, yeah, we gotta do all the bad things. I hated this movie. I didn't like it at all, and I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, this movie didn't deserve all the hate. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I don't disparage anybody that worked hard on it, but we are past this as a society. And I even think younger teenagers don't really find these movies all that entertaining. Not all of them. Maybe some of them do, but they don't really find these movies that entertaining. They're watching more intense stuff on like YouTube than this. So you can't put out crap like this. You gotta step up your game. I hate calling something crap, but it is crap in my opinion. So you gotta step up your game. Speaking of Immaculate, that was the next movie I watched. Immaculate, I'm also going to put in the C tier. And the reason why I'm putting it in the C tier, I know this movie is regarded as the better version of The First Omen. I feel like depending on which way you watch the movies, you'll like one or the other better. I watched The First Omen first, obviously, so I like The First Omen better. But even if I didn't, I still think I would find Immaculate incredibly disrespectful. I'm not going to get too much into it. I did do a review of Immaculate when I was, you know, for my YouTube channel. I did do one for the channel. I didn't go too into detail because, again, I didn't want to get in trouble with YouTube, but the whole premise of this movie being the way that it is really, really bothers me. And I'm not even a super religious person. Obviously, I said I'm a spiritual person. I'm not really religious. I don't really practice, like, Christianity or anything like that. But I can't see how this movie has gotten become so beloved. I also don't really know how I feel about Sydney Sweeney. I haven't seen enough of her yet to know if I really like her as a leading woman or not. She seems fine as a person, but as a leading woman, I'm not really sure how I feel about her yet. But the movie was kind of just offensive and weird, and I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it in general, so I put it in the C tier because I think that there were some solid, like, body horror moments, but yeah, it's not one that I ever really rewatched, to be quite honest. Okay, the next movie I have on this list is I Saw the TV Glow, which is a movie that I got recommended to me a lot by a lot of different people, and I was heard it would destroy my life. I hesitate to put this one in the A tier because it's one of the few movies I think that I will never rewatch. There is not much on this earth that I've seen that truly disturbs me to my core that's fictional, this movie got under my skin in a not so good way, to the point where I felt like I needed to shower after I watched this movie. So I didn't do a review on this one because after I watched it, well, two reasons. The first reason was I watched it the week that Hurricane Helene hit, and I was going to do a review on it, but A, it was a very busy week for obvious reasons, and B, I felt like it was a little bit disrespectful to sit here and talk about a movie when people had just lost everything in their lives. So I opted out of doing a review of it. I thought I might go back and rewatch it and do a review on it because I felt like the movie deserved its due diligence. I can't do it. There's, again, not many movies where I would say I can't go back. I can't go back. I can't go back. That one, I'm sorry if you loved I Saw the TV Glow, if it really spoke to you and you would have loved to see me do a review on it, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. I cannot do it. This movie is about a young man who makes a friend, and this friend is obsessed with a TV show. And the TV show is very supernatural. It's about two girls who have supernatural powers, who are fighting a dark entity named Mr. Melancholy. It's an A24 movie, so you know it's weird as hell. But it is also a trans allegory, transgender allegory. So I'm not trans, but it still disturbed me to my core because there are themes and elements in this movie that make you question reality. They make you question reality. And the ending of this movie did infuriate me because it was so ambiguous and it was left up to interpretation. It was left up to our interpretation. And I didn't like that. And the reason why I didn't like that was because I just went through almost 2 hours of discomfort and horror that I wanted hope. And I guess I could interpret that the ending was hopeful, but it didn't feel hopeful. It didn't feel hopeful to me. The acting was fantastic in this movie. The soundtrack was wonderful. The film itself is really well done. I can't recommend this movie though. If you want to watch it, if you haven't seen it and you're curious about it and it's you like weird horror movies, go ahead and watch it. I can't in good conscience because I left this movie legitimately feeling like I was going to vomit. I sat in my living room for a good 20 minutes after watching the movie, just like, what did I just watch? I don't feel comfortable. Like, I feel like, and it wasn't that the movie itself is scary. Like, the movie itself is like tame by comparison. The scenes are tame by comparison. To everything on this list. I mean, there are movies that have extreme gore, extreme body horror, extreme, there's pregnancy horror, there's horror about aging, there's, vampiric horrors. This movie was the only movie out of all the movies I saw this year that left me so disturbed that I could not even go back to it. I don't think I will ever go back to this movie. I was disturbed. I was sickened. I was nauseated. I don't think I gave it a high rating on Letterboxd. I gave it 3.5 stars. Mostly because I don't think I left a review. Did I leave a review? No. I at the time I gave it 3.5 stars because I felt so uncomfortable after watching it that I was like, I don't know what to rate this. I'm just gonna put it in the middle somewhere. It's an A-tier movie though, because after I stopped and I did think about it a little bit longer, it's been a long time since a movie has made me so viscerally uncomfortable that I don't want to touch it ever again. The last time was Megan is Missing, when I watched that in 2020. And that's a movie that isn't even on the same caliber as I Saw the TV Glow. I Saw the TV Glow is actually a really well done movie. Megan is Missing is absolute trash. Even without the shock factor and the shock value, it's absolute garbage. This movie just left me questioning reality. It left me feeling uncomfortable. It left me feeling nauseated. And I hated every second of it. So for me, it's like the only true horror movie on this list because I left me with horror in my, like, flowing through my veins. I don't recommend it. Maybe it won't have the same effect on you, but I don't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it though. I wouldn't recommend it. If you haven't seen it, if you want to watch it, go ahead. I believe it's still on Max. Go ahead, watch it. Maybe you'll come back and be like, That was nothing, Shay. What are you talking about? That was nothing. For me, it got under my skin, and it really upset me. And it had me questioning reality and questioning life and questioning everything. And not in the sense of the way where I was like, is this happening to me? But just being like, what does it all mean? What does it all mean? The movie just felt off, and yeah, no. I won't talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Alright, so this next movie is another movie y'all hyped up that I was disappointed by beyond belief, and that is Oddity. That goes in the F tier for me. F tier movie. When this movie came out, y'all were talking about this movie like it was the scariest movie. Not y'all, not everybody watching this, but I was on Threads, I was on Instagram, I was on Facebook. People were talking about Oddity like it was the scariest movie ever made. Like they were terrified of this movie. Oh my god, it had me on the edge of my seat. Again, maybe this is a movie I should have watched in theaters. I watched it at home a couple days before Hurricane Milton. You know, maybe I should have watched it in theaters. Maybe if I watched it in theaters, I would understand. But I wasn't on edge. The whole time I was just sitting there watching this movie like, and there was concepts of parts that were scary. There was one good jump scare. Okay, I will give the camera jump scare a round of applause because that was a good jump scare. I did not see that coming and it scared the crap out of me. I actually screamed a little bit and scared my best friend. But yeah, no, that was it. That was really all we got from that. The movie wasn't good in the slightest, and the ending was just unsatisfying. I hated it. I hated every second about this. I do not recommend Oddity. 0 out of 10 did not like this movie. So, yeah, I didn't do a review of this one. I just realized I didn't do a review of this one. This movie is about a woman who is like a clairvoyant who runs a oddity shop, a curiosities and oddity shop, henceforth the name, and her sister dies in a mysterious circumstance, and she thinks she knows how her sister dies, so she goes to stay with her brother-in-law, and weird stuff starts happening to her brother-in-law and her brother-in-law's new girlfriend right after she goes to stay with them, including, if you see the poster of the movie, there's like this weird wooden guy that just sits there like this, like it's like a figure that was given to her. I think she was supposed, if I remember correctly, the sister was supposed to take this figure, but like it was like an heirloom or something, and she just leaves it like sitting there like this. And there's a couple of good parts with that guy, especially like one part where the girlfriend looks down at the, like from upstairs at the table, and it's just like the thing is looking up at her. That was a good part. Again, there's like tiny little hints where I'm like, this is scary, this, you can see the scare, but it was never there. So yeah, no, didn't like Oddity. 0 out of 10 for me. Didn't like that movie. Maxine. Oh, Maxine Minx. I wanted to really love this movie because I loved Pearl and X. I just watched Pearl and X this past year for the first time. I wanted to really like this movie, but I didn't like it as much as the other two. I gotta put it in D tier. I gotta put it in D tier, unfortunately. So again, this is another one I did a review on. This is the final movie in the trilogy, the X trilogy, Ti West X trilogy, and it is the worst in my opinion of the three. It's still not a terrible movie. It's still, if you're gonna watch all three movies, I'd say watch it. You know, watch Pearl, X, and then Maxine. It's not my favorite of the three. It lacks a lot in the story. I talked about it in the review. I don't like the fact that they like kind of used the Night Stalker. I'm sorry, I wanted to call him the Night Ripper so bad because I've been watching so much Puppet Combo stuff on YouTube, so I wanted to call him the Night Ripper, and I'm like, he's not the Night Ripper, he's the Night Stalker. Yeah, no, the Night Stalker stuff, I didn't really like that they used that. I don't like when they use like real life stuff with like fake stuff. I would prefer them not to do that. I feel like there was just a lot lacking in Maxine Minx's character, so I wasn't a big fan of this one, so it's definitely going to be a D tier movie, unfortunately. And the other two are S and A tier. Pearl's S and X's A tier, and then it just like a huge drop down to D tier. All right, we're nearing the end. Sorry, excuse me. We're nearing the end of our list, and we are getting to our very first S tier movie. And that movie is, drumroll please, The Substance. If you watch my review on The Substance, you know how this movie absolutely destroyed me. I could not stop thinking about this movie for like 2 weeks after I watched it. I literally was sitting at home, or not staying at home, but sitting at my parents' house, because it was during Thanksgiving. It was right before Thanksgiving that I watched this. Sitting at my parents' house, and I just could not stop thinking about The Substance. That's all I was thinking about. This movie is so good. So well done, so intense. I actually just watched it again this past Monday, I'm recording it on January 8th. You're not going to see this till next week for me, this week for you guys, but I actually watched it on January 6th with my best friend because she hadn't seen it yet, and I bought it, so we watched it, and she was like, yeah, it was pretty good, it was very gross, and I'm like, yeah, I told you. This movie had so much stuff that was like an absolute no for me, stuff that like when I was rewatching it, all I was thinking in my head was, yeah, me like 5 years ago could not handle this movie. I would have been like nauseous for the whole day. I would have had to shut it off halfway through. I'm like, that's how much I've grown. I guess I would not have been able to handle this movie. It is such a on the surface level, it's such a gross movie just because of the body horror, but deeper, the horrors of aging, the horrors of of losing your value, especially as a woman. I talked about this in the video that I made about it. The horrors of that just are not lost on me, and as somebody who does have a fear of aging, it definitely like poked a hole at some of my deepest fears within me. And I feel like it's cathartic because Demi Moore just won the Golden Globe for this movie, which I did not see that coming. Like, I said it in my video that she deserved a Golden Globe and/or an Oscar, and I don't think she's going to get the Oscar. But I'm crossing my fingers. If she gets the Oscar, I'm going to cry. I said that, though, in the video, that she deserved to win all of the awards for this movie, and it seems like she's on her way. She's well on her way. This movie was amazing. It was awesome. Everybody involved in it did a great job. Even upon watching it a second time, I didn't know if I was ever going to watch it again because it was heavy, but when my best friend said she wanted to see it, we watched it. Watching it a second time, it still hits. It's a great movie. It's wonderful. And it is, like I said, it's my all-time favorite horror movie of all time. Like, I'm being redundant. It's my favorite horror movie of all time now. I love it so much. And it's so terrifying in its concept. And in its execution, it's terrifying for me too, because your body growing another full-sized human being out of it is terrifying. So yeah, The Substance is an S-tier movie, and it is actually my favorite horror movie that I watched in 2024, like that came out in 2024 that I watched. So yeah, we're almost done with this list. We got like 4 more movies left. After that, we have Alien Romulus, and I'm gonna put Alien Romulus in the B tier. So I didn't do a review on this one. I did want to. I even wrote out like, notes and stuff that I wanted to hit when I was talking about this movie, and then I just didn't do it. A lot of stuff, I got so busy once the holidays got kicked into swing, it got so busy, so I just really didn't have the time to do the video, and then plus I put so much effort into my Substance video that I just didn't have time to do Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus takes place between Alien and Aliens, and it follows a new crew that's going to basically the Nostromo to do a rescue mission, and the rescue mission is for the Xenomorph. So it has all of the typical things that you're used to in alien movies, tons of chest bursting and little guys running around, whatever those called, face huggers. Yeah, face huggers. Tons of Xenomorphs. It's very scary, very creepy. And the ending of that movie, oh my god. The Offspring. That's all I gotta say is The Offspring. I said it to my brother after I watched this movie. It's been a long time since we've had a really good Alien movie, like from the Alien franchise, not aliens in general. And this one did not disappoint. The only reason it's in B tier is because I feel like none of the characters were memorable, and how you walked away from the original movie, like just really like loving Ripley and loving how tough she was. This movie didn't have that moment, so unfortunately for me, that drops it to B tier because, yeah, I didn't have anybody that stood out to me that really like blew me away. But the special effects were amazing. Practical effects are always the way to go. Fede Alvarez knows that. The special effects were awesome. The story was really cool, and yeah, it was a solid Alien movie. Can't complain. All right, after that is Smile 2. Smile 2, I'm gonna put in the B tier as well. Obviously, if you're here, you probably saw my Smile 2 review video, but just in case, it's going to be in that playlist I'm going to make for you guys. Yeah, Smile 2 definitely was an improvement upon Smile 1. I think it also helped that I didn't know going in exactly what was going to happen, because unlike Smile 1, I didn't have like the Smile 2 trailer shoved in my face. I also wasn't on social media as much during this time, you know, but Smile 2 was definitely a fun, like, movie. It was definitely creepy, definitely had its, like, it had its heart. The music is awesome. I love Sky Riley. Can't complain. Smile 2 still was pretty good. It was a pretty good movie. All right, next is Speak No Evil, and honestly, I'm gonna put Speak No Evil in the C tier. Well, I did a review on this one as well, so it'll be in the playlist. Well, I did really like the remake of Speak No Evil. It still sits in the middle for me because there were things about it that really just didn't sit right with me. And I talked about it in my video. It's a good movie. It's solid. I have no qualms against it. I would recommend it over the original Speak No Evil to most people because most people wouldn't be able to handle the original Speak No Evil, and this one is a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to stomach. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one because I did a whole video about it just recently, so Speak No Evil is definitely going to be in the C tier for me. And then finally, you see it sitting there, Nosferatu goes in the S tier. Considering this was the last video that I did, I'm going to keep this spot brief, but this movie is definitely one of my favorite movies of 2024. It did not disappoint. It did not let me down. It did not, like, I thought it was fantastic. Initially, when I saw it the first time, I was like, okay, I really love this movie, but I'm gonna ruminate on it for a little bit. I'm gonna let it simmer, and then we'll see how I feel. And then when I watched it the second time, I was like, nope, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies in 2024. So yeah, Nosferatu is in the S tier with The Substance. And there you have it, folks. There is my tier list of the movies I watched in 2024 and what I thought about them. I'm gonna put this tier list in the description if you guys want to do your own. I don't know if you can add movies on there. If not, then I'm sorry. If anything, you guys can always, like, leave me a comment and let me know if you want me to add any movies in there that you might have seen and maybe other people have seen them, and then I can throw them on the tier list and you guys can do that. But I want to know what you guys thought of these movies. If you saw all of these movies, what did you think of them? Where would you put them? I kind of want to just know how we all sit together, because I'm sure some of the stuff I've said about certain movies you guys disagree with, especially probably Late Night with the Devil, because I'm in the minority on that one. I'm in the minority, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, so yeah, let me know in the comments below what you would rank these movies if you've seen them all. If you haven't seen them all, some of these I would highly recommend, some of these I would not recommend. So yeah, yeah, I guess that's where we're gonna leave it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was an interesting one. It's different than my usual content. If you've been here for a couple weeks, you probably are just used to seeing the movie reviews. I like to do tier lists from time to time on things. We're gonna leave that at that. Yeah, so my Nosferatu review should be dropping soon for me. I'm in the past. I'm way in the past. But hopefully you guys enjoy my Nosferatu review. If you've seen it by now, let me know. Let me know in the comments again what you think about these movies. Let me know if there's any movies that you suggest I should watch that came out in 2024. Any sort of engagement with this video, whether it's a like, a comment, or subscribe, lets me know that you liked what you just watched. If you want to find me on any socials, I'm not really super active on them. I should be more active, but, like, also social media is a hellscape right now. If you've been on it in the last couple of days, you know how crazy it's been. But I am on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and until January 19th, I'm on TikTok as Creepy Critiques, if you want to go check that out. Other than that, I will see you guys in my next video, which will be the mouth-washing video. I'm so excited to do that video for you guys, but I will see you guys in my next video, and take care of yourselves, and I will see you all with another Creepy Critique.